Okay, so we're at the Ruffner Number 1, or coming into the Ruffner Number 1 ore mine zone. And what you've got right here, this is the main branch line right here. The rail bed remains of the Gate City branch as it went by the Ruffner Number 1. And up here, this is the beginning of the spur line, which branched off the Gate City line, heading into the Ruffner Number 1 mine. So we're going to head up here and follow the spur line into the Ruffner Number 1 mine area. But the Gate City branch continues on. You know, it's on the south side of Ruffner Mountain, and it continues on to the other mine sites. But we'll head up here on the spur line to the Ruffner Number 1 mine site. Okay, that's a sun might obscure some of that, but that's a look back to the southwest of the Ruffner Number 1 spur line, and try to keep the sun out. Straight ahead is the rail bed, the berm of the Gate City branch line, and all back in here and on the other side of the tracks, this is where the mining camps were. Sloss-Sheffield had a commissary here, medical offices, but you know, there's a couple of pictures of what this looked like back in the day, and tells you how much Mother Nature can take over real quickly. See a dead kudzu, but you know, this was a major mining camp for Sloss-Sheffield since they had all these mines in operation. But the spur line continues on ahead and hooks to the left, heading into the Ruffner Number 1 mine site. Okay, so following the rail bed, this was a single track spur line coming into the Ruffner Number 1 mine site. And you've got plenty of foundation remains everywhere. And the biggest foundation remain right here is the ore crusher foundation right here. You know, these go back to the early 1900s. Right here, they had a huge ore crusher. It's the same at Ruffner Number 3 and Ruffner Number 2 that sat up top here. You know, they did remove this one, but they extensively modified these mines from open ore mining to drift mining, and then they started developing the slope mines. So, and you've got a retaining wall here. I think this was built sometime after 1910. It's a concrete line retaining wall, and the spur line terminates just like at Number 3, Number 2, Number 4, terminates into the ravine back here. But there's several pictures of Ruffner Number 1 right here, and they had a series of drift mines. All the mines operated almost the same way. Drift mines going all the way up the mountain. They operated on the gravity plane system, where they didn't have to use steam, or, you know, they had cables, and it was a trajectory. They used weight and balance to get the mine cars up and down the mountain. But they had a huge, before they built this wall, they had a huge, several wooden loading bridges right here for the mine cars. So, and the mine cars would be hoisted by a cable on a bull wheel all the way to the top of the ore crusher, and the contents will be deposited down here. Crushed ore will be sent into a waiting rail car here. So they backed up 2, 3, 4 rail cars all the way back in here. But you know, it's pretty extensive. These are pretty extensive mining sites. Covers a lot of territory. So we're just going to concentrate on the you know, the rail bed section, the rail section of the mines. So, you know, you can see just overgrowth is incredible. A lot of privet, so tough to move around. But anyway, it's a very historic mine site right here. And like I said, this is your most definitive section or foundation remains of the Ruffner Number 1 mine site. So, all right, let's look back to the southeast right there along the rail bed. Okay, right up here is the rail bed of the Birmingham Railroad's Gate City branch line as it parallels the south side of Ruffner Mountain. And one of the things that you see, probably at Ruffner, there's no finer example of stone culverts right here. Still standing, still doing their job right here. These were, they came from quarries, which are yet as unidentified which quarry they came from. But these were built by the Masons, and all these had to be built because this is a elevated rail berm, and all these had to be built before workers came in, laborers came in and started filling in the ravine to level it out for, you know, for the rail bed. So these had to be done in advance. And these were built about 1888 or so, all by hand. And, you know, you can look through to the other side right there. And the water's coming off the top of the mountain, and they angled the rocks ahead, so when debris and other stuff came through the culvert, the angle of the rocks and the position of them would break up the debris. Because, you know, that goes back to 1888, 1889, and you can see it's virtually debris free. So it's very impressive. All those lintels right there. So just a piece of history right here. And probably Ruffner has the best examples, the best remaining examples of stone culverts anywhere in the Birmingham district that are still intact. So, but anyway, we're going to continue on down towards the number 4 mine site. Okay, so this is looking back to the southwest, standing on top of the Birmingham Mineral Railroad bed of the Gate City branch. And this right here, right there, this begins the spur line going into the Ruffner Number 4 mine site right here. So we're going to walk the spur line, and it'll go ahead and terminate into you know, at the end of the 2 ravines. So you've got this right here is your main rail bed of the Gate City branch line heading, and so this is right here, the spur line going into number 4. Okay, this is looking back along the spur line going into the Ruffner Number 4 mine site. This was a single track spur line, and just over in that direction there's another stone culvert. And that's the main rail bed of the Gate City branch right there. So all these spur lines breaking off the Gate City branch, you know, because they had to keep everything level for the rail beds, they terminated into the ravines right here. So you've got some washout right here. So the rail bed continues on around to the left, and we'll just follow that up to the end right there. But like I said, these are the rail bed remains of the Ruffner Number 4 spur line. Okay, kind of hard to see with the sun, but that's looking back to the southwest, or southeast, southwest direction on the Ruffner Number 4 spur line rail bed remains right here. And this mine was only in operation for 4 or 5 years before they just quit mining here. They did open ore and drift mining, operating on a gravity plane system. And once a mining company had exhausted what they could get out of a mine, albeit a coal mine, iron ore mine, you know, they weren't going to ever come back. The railroad companies would come and remove the branch line or the spur line rails, because they would use the rails, you know, in another place. But they would come and remove the rails and not so much the cross ties, but they would take the rails because they were the most valuable, and they would just abandon the spur line or the branch line. So this is looking towards the ravine, and the number 4 terminates at the bottom between 2 ravines if you want to say fingers that come down from the top of the mountain. So we'll head up here a little further. Okay, so that's this is looking to the northwest, and not going to go any further. You've got just a bog right here, swamp. Got a lot of down trees up ahead, but just no more than about 50 yards up is where the spur line terminated, and they had a huge wooden trestle going across the where the waiting open rail cars would be of the Birmingham Railroad. And you had gravity plane system. You had drift mines on either flank of the fingers, and you know, they would just lower the ore cars after they came out of the mine, lower them down to this huge wooden platform that had self-acting tipples on it. You know, they just push the mine car into the self-acting tipple and tip it over, dump the contents. There was no ore crusher up here, so it was just pure cut, extracted iron ore from the mines. And this is where the rail cars were stacked up in. At a mine like this, they usually had about one rail car, and I'm not sure about how many times a week or once a week. You know, L&N would send a locomotive and back it in here and take it out the, you know, the loaded rail car, but they'd replace it with an empty one or two. But this was only in operation for several years, 5 years at the most, before L&N came in and removed all the rails and abandoned the spur line. But it's just a little forgotten piece of history here at Ruffner. So anyway, that's a look back right there. So we'll continue on to the Ruffner Number 2 mine site. Okay, back on the rail bed of the Gate City branch line of the Birmingham Railroad, and you can still see the remains of the cross ties that they threw off when they removed the rails back, I believe it was in the early 70s maybe. The rail lines were still intact even up into the late 60s, I believe. But you can see remains today still of the cross ties right here. And this is looking, heading towards the Number 2 mine site. Back in the 30s, all the mines had been abandoned up here at Ruffner, and L&N requested through the Interstate Commerce Commission, they would have to formally request through the Interstate Commerce Commission if they were going to abandon or align or add one. So they have to justify why they're abandoning it. And north of the Ruffner Number 2 mine, they had the Trussville blast furnace and all the older iron ore mines out there. There was no traffic, no passenger or freight traffic, so there was no justification for you know, leaving the line intact and paying maintenance costs and royalty, property fees running through somebody's property. So they had requested in the 30s to abandon north of Number 2 to Trussville, which was granted, and they removed all the rails. But they still kept this open because Sloss wanted the line kept open in case they reopened the Number 2 mine, which they did, I think, in 1939, 1940. I think it was 1940, at the start of World War II. They wanted to go ahead and open that mine up again for the production, for iron ore, for the production of more steel, pig iron. So that's why this line was kept open. But that's looking back to the southwest. So gonna head through this cut right here, and that'll be taking us to the Number 2 mine. Okay, so proceeding through this railbed cut, and when all these lines were built back in the early days, you know, everything was steam locomotives. You did have telegraph wires. You know, you didn't even have telephone lines back then stretching out. So when the trains were coming into a mine site, they actually had whistle post signs where the train drivers, locomotive engineers, they would, you know, hit the steam whistle to let the people at the mine know that the train was coming in. But, you know, every mile there were milepost markers, And on the Gate City branch at Ruffner, there's only 2 that are still in existence that I'm aware of. Milepost 393, I think it is, off of Port Madrid Road, and milepost 394, which is near the Ruffner Number 3 mine. And there's supposed to be another one, but it's probably got removed, crushed, whatever. But I'll see if I can include some of those pictures in. But to come across an intact whistle post marker over 100 years old that's still in existence is very rare. And this is the only one that I'm aware of that's in existence really almost anywhere along any abandoned rail line. And it's right here. This was a whistle post marker for the Ruffner Number 2 mine. So the Ruffner Number 2 is straight ahead. So they got to this point, they would hit that steam whistle to let the people at Ruffner know that the train was coming in. So it's very rare, very historic piece of railroad history and mining history up here at Ruffner is this intact whistle post marker. Now there's quite a few whistle post markers that are on the rail bed that are all fallen down that can be seen. I may include some of those pictures. There's actually one further up the way that's had to uncover with leaves some years ago. I may include that, or just but this is very historic. Hope nothing happens to it. Right there. So just up here in the woods in the rail bed. So it's a really nice piece of preserved history. So we'll be heading through the rail bed cut to Ruffner Number 2.